Yo, we're back. Hopefully the last part of the War of Art. We're looking at Invoking the Muse, part 3. By the way, sorry I had to cut last session short. I'm going to talk about it. Someone walking past. I got a bit nervous. Invoking the Muse, part 3. Artists have invoked the Muse since time immemorial. There is a great wisdom to this. There is a magic to effacing our human arrogance and humbly entreating help from a source we cannot see, hear, touch, or smell. Here's the start of Homer's Odyssey, the T.E. Lawrence translation. O divine Posy, goddess, daughter of Zeus, sustain for me this song of the various-minded man who, after he had plundered the innermost citadel of hallowed Troy, was made to stray grievously about the coasts of men, the sport of their customs, good and bad, while his heart, through all the seafaring, ached with an agony to redeem itself, and bring his company safe home. Vain hope for them, the fools, their own witlessness cast them aside, to destroy for meat the oxen of the most exalted sun. Wherefore the sun god blotted out the day of their return. Make this tale live for us in all its bearings, O Muse. This passage will reward closer study. First, divine Posy. When we invoke the Muse, we are calling on a force, not just from a different plane of reality, but from a holier plane. Goddess, daughter of Zeus. Not only are we invoking divine intercession, but intercession on the highest level, just one remove from the top. Sustain for me. Homer doesn't ask for brilliance or success. He just wants to keep this thing going. This song. That about covers it. From the brothers Karamazov to your new venture in the plumbing supply business. I love the summation of Odyssey's trials that comprises the body of the invocation. It's Joseph Campbell's hero's journey in a nutshell, as concise a synopsis of the story of every man as it gets. There's the initial crime, which we all inevitably commit, which ejects the hero from his homebound complacency and propels him upon his wanderings, the yearnings for redemption, the untiring campaign to get home, meaning back to God's grace, back to himself. I admire particularly the warning against the second crime, to destroy for meat the oxen of the most exalted sun. That's the felony that calls down soul destruction, the employment of the sacred for profane means, prostitution, selling out. Lastly, the artist's wish for his work. Make this tale live for us in all its many bearings, O Muse. That's what we want, isn't it? More than make it great, make it live. And not from one angle only, but in all its many bearings. Okay? We've said our prayer, we're ready to work. Now what? The magic of making a start. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would not otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings, and material assistance, which no man would have dreamed would come his way. I have learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, magic and power in it. Begin it now. W. H. Murray, The Scottish Himalayan Expedition. Did you ever see The Wings of Desire? Wim Wenders' film about angels among us? City of Angels with Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage was the American version. I believe it. I believe there are angels. They're here but we can't see them. Angels work for God. It's their job to help us, wake us up, bump us along. Angels are the agents of evolution. The Kabbalah describes angels as bundles of light, meaning intelligence, consciousness. Kabbalists believe that above every blade of grass is an angel crying, grow, grow. I'll go further. I believe that above the entire human race is one super angel crying, evolve, evolve. Angels are like muses. They know stuff we don't. They want to help us. They're on the other side of a pane of glass, shouting to get our attention, but we can't hear them. We're too distracted by our own nonsense. But when we begin, when we make a start, when we conceive an enterprise and commit to it, in the face of our fears, something wonderful happens. A crack appears in the membrane, like the first craze when a chick pecks at the inside of its shell. Angel midwives congregate around us. They assist us as we give birth to ourselves. To that person we were born to be, to the one whose destiny was encoded in our soul, our daemon, our genius. When we make a beginning, we get out of our own way and allow the angels to come in and do their job. They can speak to us now, and it makes them happy. It makes God happy. Eternity, as Blake might have told us, has opened a portal into time, and we're it. The magic of keeping going. When I finish a day's work, I head up into the hills for a hike. I take a pocket tape recorder because I know that as my surface mind empties with the walk, another part of me will chime in and start talking. The word Leah on page 342, it should be ogle. You repeated yourself in chapter 21. The last sentence is just like that one in the middle of chapter 7. That's the kind of stuff that comes. It comes to all of us every day, every minute. These paragraphs I'm writing now were dictated to me yesterday. They replace a prior, weaker opening to this chapter. I'm unspooling the new, improved version right now off the recorder. This process of self-revision and self-correction is so common we don't even notice, but it's a miracle. And its implications are staggering. Who's doing this revising anyway? What force is yanking at our sleeves? What does it tell us about the architecture of our psyches? That, without our exerting effort or even thinking about it, some voice in our head pipes up to counsel us, and counsel us wisely, on how to do our work and live our lives. Whose voice is it? What software is grinding away, scanning gigabytes, while we, our mainstream selves, are otherwise occupied? Are these angels? Are they muses? Is this the unconsciousness, the self? Whatever it is, it's smarter than we are, a lot smarter. It doesn't need us to tell it what to do. It goes to work all by itself. It seems to want to work. It seems to enjoy it. What exactly is it doing? It's organizing. The principle of organization is built into nature. Chaos itself is self-organizing. Out of the primordial disorder, stars find their orbits. Rivers make their way to the sea. When we, like God, set out to create a universe, a book, an opera, a new business venture, the same principle kicks in. Our screenplay resolves itself into a 3-act structure. Our symphony takes shape into movements. Our plumbing supply venture discovers its optimum chain of command. How do we experience this? By having ideas, insights pop into our heads while we're shaving or taking a shower, or even, amazingly, while we're actually working. The elves behind this are smart. If we forget something, they remind us. If we veer off course, they trim the tabs and steer us back. What can we conclude from this? Clearly, some intelligence is at work, independent of our conscious mind, and yet in alliance with it, processing our material for us and alongside us. This is why artists are modest. They know they're not doing the work. They're just taking dictation. It's also why non-creative people hate creative people, because they're jealous. They sense that artists and writers are tapped into some grid of energy and inspiration that they themselves cannot connect with. Of course, this is nonsense. We're all creative. We all have the same psyche. The same everyday miracles are happening in all our heads day by day, minute by minute. Largo. Okay, I'm just at 165, 130, cool. So I was doing some quick maths. In my 20s, I drove tractor trailers for a company called Burton Lines in Durham, North Carolina. I wasn't very good at it. My self-destruction demons had me. Only blind luck kept me from killing myself and any other poor suckers who happened to be on the highway at the same time. It was a tough period. I was broke, estranged from my wife and my family. One night I had this dream. I was part of the crew of an aircraft carrier. Only the ship was stuck on dry land. It was launching its jets and doing its thing, but it was marooned half a mile from the ocean. The sailors all knew how screwed up the situation was. They felt it as a keen and constant distress. The only bright spot was there was a Marine gunnery sergeant on board nicknamed Largo. In the dream, it seemed like the coolest name anyone could possibly have. Largo. I loved it. Largo was one of those hardcore senior non-coms, like that Burt Lancaster character, Warden, in From Here to Eternity. The one guy on the ship who knows exactly what's going on. The tough old Sarge who makes all the decisions and actually runs the show. But where was Largo? I was standing miserably by the rail when the captain came over and started talking to me. Even he was lost. It was his ship, but he didn't know how to get it off dry land. I was nervous, finding myself in conversation with the brass, and couldn't think of a thing to say. The skipper didn't seem to notice. He just turned to me casually and said, "What the hell are we going to do, Largo?" I woke up electrified. I was Largo. I was a salty old gunny. The power to take charge was in my hands. All I had to do was believe it. Where did this dream come from? Plainly, its intent was benevolent. What was its source? And what does it say about the workings of the universe, that such things happen at all? Again, we've all had dreams like that. Again, they're common as dirt. So is sunrise. That doesn't make it any less a miracle. Before I got to North Carolina, I worked in the oil fields around Buras, Louisiana. I lived in a bunkhouse with a bunch of other transient geeks. One guy had picked up a paperback about meditation in a bookstore in New Orleans. He was teaching me how to do it. I used to go out to this dock after work and see if I could get into it. One night this came. I was sitting cross-legged when an eagle came and landed on my shoulders. The eagle merged with me and took off flying, so that my head became its head and my arms its wings. It felt completely authentic. I could feel the air under my wings, as solid as water feels when you row it with an oar. It was substantial. You could push off against it. So this was how birds flew. I realized that it was impossible for a bird to fall out of the sky. All it would have to do was extend its wings. The solid air would hold it up with the same power we feel when we stick our hand out the window of a moving car. I was pretty impressed with this movie that was playing out in my head, but I still had no idea what it meant. I asked the eagle, "Hey, what am I supposed to be learning from this?" A voice answered silently, You're supposed to learn that things that you think are nothing, as weightless as air, are actually powerful, substantial forces, as real and as solid as earth." I understood. The eagle was telling me that the dreams, visions, meditations, such as this very one, things that I had till now disdained as fantasy and illusion, were real and as solid as anything in my waking life. I believed the eagle. I got the message. How could I not? I had felt the solidness of the air. I knew he was telling the truth. Which brings us back to the question, where did the eagle come from? Why did he show up just at the right time to tell me what I needed to hear? Clearly, some unseen intelligence had created him, giving him form as an eagle so that I would understand what it wanted to communicate. This intelligence was babying me along, keeping it simple, making its point in terms so clear and elementary that even someone as numb and asleep as I was could understand. Life and death. Okay, there's an image here. I'm going to show it now, and yeah, we got it. We're going to refer to that at some point in this double page. Life and death. Remember the movie Billy Jack starring Tom Laughlin? The film and its sequels have long since decamped to cable, but Tom Laughlin is still very much around. In addition to his movie work, he's a lecturer and author, and a Jungian schooled psychologist, whose specialty is working with people who have been diagnosed with cancer. Tom Laughlin teaches and leads workshops. Here's a paraphrase of something I heard him say. The moment a person learns he's got terminal cancer, a profound shift takes place in his psyche. At one stroke in the doctor's office, he becomes aware of what really matters to him. Things that 60 seconds earlier had seemed all important suddenly appear meaningless, while people and concerns that he had till then dismissed at once take on supreme importance. Maybe he realizes working this weekend on that big deal at the office isn't all that vital. Maybe it's more important to fly cross-country for his grandson's graduation. Maybe it isn't so crucial that he have the last word in a fight with his wife. Maybe instead he should tell her how much she means to him and how deeply he has always loved her. Other thoughts occur to the patient diagnosed as terminal. What about that gift he once had for music? What became of the passion he once felt to work with the sick and homeless? Why do these unlived lives return now with power and poignancy? Faced with our imminent extinction, Tom Laughlin believes all assumptions are called into question. What does our life mean? Have we lived it right? Are there vital acts we've left unperformed, crucial words unspoken? Is it too late? Tom Laughlin draws a diagram of the psyche, a Jungian-derived model that looks something like this. So we have the self, the ego, and divine ground. Self, ego, divine ground. There we go. The ego, Jung tells us, is a part of the psyche that we think of as I, our conscious intelligence, our everyday brain that thinks, plans, and runs the show of our day-to-day life. The self, as Jung defined it, is a greater entity, which includes the ego, but also incorporates the personal and collective unconscious. Dreams and intuitions come from this self. The archetypes of the unconscious dwell there. It is, Jung believed, the sphere of the soul. What happens in that instance when we learn we may soon die, Tom Laughlin contends, is that the seat of our consciousness shifts. It moves from the ego to the self. The world is entirely new, viewed from the self. At once we discern what's really important. Superficial concerns fall away, replaced by a deeper, more profoundly grounded perspective. This is how Tom Laughlin's foundation battles cancer. He counsels his clients not just to make the shift mentally, but to live it out in their lives. He supports the housewife in resuming her career in social work, urges the businessman to return to the violin, assists the Vietnam vet to write his novel. Miraculously, cancers go into remission. People recover. It is possible, Tom Laughlin asks, that the disease itself evolved as a consequence of actions taken or not taken in our lives. Could our unlived lives have exacted this vengeance upon us in the form of cancer? And if they did, can we cure ourselves by living these out? Okay, so we still have a little bit more left of the book. There's a chance we're going to finish it in the next episode, chance that we might not, about 30 odd pages. We'll see how we go. Thank you for watching. See you next time.